So welcome to the ValveKeep and VK-Viewer webinar. This is supposed to be just a quick introduction to ValveKeep and talk really specifically about how it really applies at the repair level and some of the benefits for you as a user in using ValveKeep. What I want to cover today is going to be a short description of ValveKeep and the history of where it came from, how it came about, and how it's developed into today's usage, as well as highlight some of the benefits for you, the end user. I want to discuss a little bit about why this is key at the repair level, and then we're going to spend a lot of time walking through VK-Viewer itself to kind of see firsthand all the details that can be captured and how you can use this as a tool in your day-to-day process to help you make some of those key maintenance decisions. So what is ValveKeep? ValveKeep was a name given to the software. It was originally developed by Avert Systems way back in the early 90s. It was eventually purchased by Dresser Industries at the time and now GE, and has developed over those many, many years into a very, very powerful piece of software. A lot of people have noted the fact that you can get your test sheets and stuff online, which is great, but it's not a document database as far as just putting test sheets out there. It really is a full multi-user relational database that provides both new sale as well as repair documentation for all types of valve and valve equipment. While it was originally built around OSHA's PSM compliance regulations, it is not just for safety valves by any means. And as I mentioned, it was started by Dresser, now GE, but it is manufacturer independent. So any type of manufacturer's equipment can be captured and processed through ValveKeep through our regular repairs or new build. It does provide very powerful tools that are unique to ValveKeep that provide preventive maintenance planning and complete turnaround management, which means that there's a lot of different pieces of the data that we're capturing in the database. And because it's a relational database, we can take tools and build them off of those multiple tables into ways that makes it easy for you as a user to get down to critical data without having to be an engineer that can just really write their own queries and things in a database. And some of that stuff is built around specific applications that we know you as customers need. For example, your outages and turnarounds. So I'll show you some of the examples as we get into it, but a lot of those tools are what makes this thing so very powerful and unique in its class amongst software for asset management. It was built on a focus for customers and your needs for compliance with PSM, but it's expanded far beyond that. But I do want to talk a little bit about that because some of the key features that come from ValveKeep came directly out of the regulation itself and making sure that we maintain a piece of software that's going to do this for you by default. The regulation specifically talks about mechanical integrity of all your equipment, as well as the inspection and testing procedures. Not only the frequency, but exactly how those procedures are done to make sure they are in accordance with the generally accepted good engineering practices, which is usually dictated by the manufacturer. It shall be consistent, as it mentions here, with manufacturer's recommendations, and more frequently if determined to be necessary by prior operating experience. And that's a key thing that I've underlined here because a lot of that, says you have to have that experience, but where do you have documentation to draw from to back you up when you make those type of decisions, whether it be to increase or decrease the frequency? And ValveKeep provides that for you. And employers should document each test and inspection, but it's not just the test and inspection, but all the different people that are involved with it, all the equipment that was used on it, the serial number and unique identifier of the equipment, as well as, of course, the test results. ValveKeep does that as a very, very minimum, and it does so much more. That's what it started with, and it's started to get a lot more data in that repair cycle that allows us to do a lot more than just record this. So this was the basis for it, but it's really developed a lot further than that over the last 17 years. So what's in it for me? If you are a PSM compliant customer, then obviously it's built right into ValveKeep. As I mentioned, all those little things are in there plus more. It's gotten to a point actually with our standards and customer feedback actually to where now all of our signature fields require password protection so that only that one individual could have possibly signed off on that kind of thing. And these things have been reviewed and approved by National Board and other industries. So it's really grown beyond PSM compliance, but it's already built into what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. It helps you identify trends in operations and maintenance. I'll show you some more of the tools in there, but for example, if it doesn't have to be a safety valve, but let's say it was a safety valve and you had a batch of those come in for repair, and you can see quickly that 80% of those failed the initial pretest. Well, that's clearly an indication of what you need to do as far as maintenance. You probably need to shorten up that cycle, because if 80% of them are failing pretest and one of those needed to lift, then you would definitely have an issue. However, if you also see that 99% of them are passing that pretest, it may be an indication that you can extend that. Where it comes to other pieces of equipment like an MOV, Limitorques have a limit switch in there that has a range of torque that it can output, and it's basically set up that way when the actuator is sized to the equipment that's going on. And it's designed to give you more torque over time as your valve starts to wear and get increased friction, those kind of things. However, when you start to see that thing creep over a history of a valve, it doesn't necessarily mean to do more PM on the actuator, but it definitely indicates you need some work on the valve. So whether it be safety valves, actuators, or anything we're working on, there's data in there that can help you with identifying trends so that you can determine what you need to do as far as maintenance and maintaining that at the lowest cost possible, of course. You have complete visibility of the repair process as well. So one of the things we pride ourselves on is when we use ValveKeep, we say this is the way we do business, and it literally is, because our techs are sitting there entering the data into ValveKeep as they're doing the repairs on your equipment. So you can literally see from your desktop what stage that equipment's in and watch it go through from a 10% to 100% complete process, and you'll be able to get all the results of that before the valve even ships if you are watching it through the database. It puts a complete history as well at your fingertips. So if we would have sold the valve new on an engineering project, for example, and we've got that data in the ValveKeep, and you come around for the first cycle of repairs and we capture that data and everything beyond, you can literally log in and see a complete history from the new build to every repair and every maintenance that's been done to that valve. And that's an exceptional value, because any SAP or any other type of ERP system that you may be using is not likely to have that type of depth and range on what it's tracking in your system. It's just looking for a target date. Did it happen? Did it not? And that's about it. We can also use this tool now to help manage parts and spare valve inventories. These are big benefits as far as trying to set up your budget, because we can identify parts that we know are going to need to be replaced on the next repair. And you can see that right in ValveKeep or VK Viewer to know what you're going to have to spend the next time it comes up. You can see scheduling within the calendar to see how many valves are coming due. You can actually manage spares as well through there. So it's quite extensive on the length of the tool and what it's gone to today. It is exportable. So if you do need to get this data out and you do have another system that is forcing you to use for certain things, you can grab what you need out of ValveKeep and only what you need and export it out as an Excel spreadsheet or a common denominated file. Basically what that means is it's coming out in a format that can be easily imported into whatever system you may be using, as long as your system has import capabilities. And of course, it's 24/7 secure internet access, secure being the key word. It is password protected against the database. And then once you get in, you have access to all of your data 24/7 from anywhere you can get internet access. So a lot of things to offer, and this is really just skimming the top of it. But some of the things that have been really important to most of our customers, I wanted to bring it up today. This is a quick example of some of the data. And when I'm talking about why it's important to do it on the repair level, this is kind of some of the examples. Obviously, PSM compliance requires you to keep records of that testing, and somebody giving you a Word document with a little signature, I guess technically may qualify, even though that's just barely skimming the surface of what can be done. Here in ValveKeep, every little piece of data that we're doing is being captured inside the database. And not only is it being captured, but it's being tracked against standards. So you can see that the testing here has been passed and how it applies to the API standard versus what's being put out by National Board Section 8 code. So all that stuff is being done to the industry standards and captured in there. We're capturing not only the type of bench test that we did on water, but we're actually recording the gauges that were used and when they were calibrated. So any type of traceability that you need from the process all the way back to the parts, and keeping information on the actual part number and traceability all the way back to the manufacturer, it's all there. So that whatever level you need, whether it just be PSM compliance or it could be something to do with the The ISO, I mean, there's everything you need has been built in for the system. So it's very important to pick up on that. And one more screen here, you can actually see a little more in detail. So in addition to just the regular test and that it average popped at 677 there in the bottom, you also see that individual tests have been recorded inside the database. So it's quite a bit of data that we've got. So with all that said, I want to really jump out and get into ValveKeep itself, so you can kind of see firsthand exactly what you can do with this software. To get to it, hopefully you guys are familiar with our company website. We have a whole section about ValveKeep, and I wanted to go a little bit over that. On the overview page, you'll see the excerpt that I referred to in here, and it has some more stuff in here about the benefits. So feel free to look back and refer to this, as well as watch the little short GE generated video about ValveKeep and what it can do. To access the software, your users log into ValveKeep. If you don't have a username yet, you can easily sign up for it by using this link here. Once you log into ValveKeep, you'll see a screen that looks similar to this, and we have two major views accessing the software, and each view has its own benefits. What you're seeing now is what we call a tree view, and this is a demo account, but so I'm seeing multiple plants, and if I was an engineer over multiple plants, I could easily get access to see all the different plants through one view. More than likely, you're just a person at an individual location, so you won't see a tree of multiple locations like this. You'll simply just see this section here, which would be your plant. However, you do have the capability with one click, as you see I've checked here, to filter all the data out into the different equipment type. CV is obviously control valve, relief valve, line valve, motor operated valve. Now you can also further expand that to be by the unit level. So if you're tracking what units they're actually on, I can see the different units here, and when I open that up, because I've got both checked, I'm then breaking it down again by equipment type. And one other cool feature that often gets overlooked is the ability to use additional levels here. So that if I wanted to look at all of the valves or equipment and when it was last tested and maintained, I could look at that either on a by year or by year and month basis. So I'll click by year, for example, it'll refresh the view. And now, since I've got it done by unit level, and when I open up any unit, I'm going to see a subgrouping of what was done in each year. And then when I open that up, I can see I did one relief valve that year. I can see that it did 16 in 2010 and 3 more in 2012, for example. So this is just a short example of the power when you have a relational database and the quick and easy filtering and tools that we can build in from the front. This is telling you a lot right here just in a grouping. But if you would get into more deeper level analysis, you can really get down to some critical decision making skills with the software. The other view I wanted to go into is the repair list view. The repair list view is what you would commonly see in like Excel. And in here, you can set up the columns that you want to be one of many different pieces of data that we capture. If I click on columns in the grid, I want to give you an example of what we're capturing at that repair level. Because again, the real focus here is to kind of show you the value as having something like this type of software being done at the repair level. Whether you choose to use us or another company, it can only be gathered when you're doing the repair itself. And this is an example on the left here of all the different data that we're trying to capture for an individual repair. And all the stuff is custom built for the type of valve that we're doing or a piece of equipment that we're working on. These fields are going to apply to safety relief valves. But if we were on up here an MOV module for Limitorque, you would also see columns in that grid that apply specifically to that type of equipment. Okay. And any of the columns that you wanted to choose from here, you could bring over and move to show up in your grid. So there's quite a bit available. Now I'm going to go back again to the relief valve because there's some that we've pretty much built in for you because it's a very commonly used analysis tool. Now you can create these by coming down here to the left-hand side and creating filters. Or you can also create different analysis tools. So in doing these, I can analyze any of the fields that are in the grid, or I can configure other columns that I want to put into the grid. The pretest versus cold differential test pressure is one such example. If I were to go in here, you can see that I've configured that to give me a specific range outside of what it tested at. And that would depend on section 1 and section 8, of course. But I can configure that and I can create whatever type of flag that I want so that if it falls outside of that range, it'll automatically add that flag to the column. And this is a quick visual indicator and a quick analysis on your stuff to tell you, exactly how many valves you have that are failing or pretest, whether it be too low or too high. With anything outside that range is going to show up. You can see another example of some of the details by clicking on this little icon here for any individual valve you look at. And you can see what we see internally on a tab by tab basis of all the data that we're trying to capture. You've got as received data versus as shipped. So if any changes have been made on how it came in versus how it's going out, will be captured here. The total valve configuration is going to be in here. All the nameplate data and more, all the QC and final tests. I don't want to get down into this because it's talking about safety valves. We really have so many different types of equipment that we can do. With any piece of equipment, though, I do want to point out that we have a lifeline view, so you can get a quick view overall of the complete maintenance history, what's been done in the past, as well as what's coming due. And that's set on whatever schedule and frequency you would like. And then you can click on any one of these to go directly to that actual maintenance. And we have images collected with each and every piece of equipment, as well as generic attachments. Now, the images are key. A couple things. If there's some type of configuration on the valve and the way we've got the piping set up or wiring or whatever it may be, we can capture that on a equipment level. So it'll last for whatever repairs go in the future. We can always go back to that equipment level stuff and see stuff that'll apply to it throughout its life. And we also have individual event pictures and attachments. And here's, for example, you can see that we've captured a part that's been dinged up. We've shown the actual marking on the valve here, on the face of this here, so you can see the damage that's been done. And as you go through the pictures, you're going to see that we'll also capture the pictures of the part that's been replaced. So here you can see more pitting. You get a good sense of what you're paying for here. Anybody could just tell you, oh, you need these parts, and they're going to sell you a bunch of parts. But here you've got all the data you need. You can not only get confidence in what you're paying for, but you can also see the condition yourself firsthand. And you won't be able to see this unless you were to come in the shop and watch them do a breakdown. So capturing all this data at the repair level is so critical, and we know how valuable it is to you that we make it available to you through ValveKeep, and you can literally access it at the moment it's been uploaded and added to the repair. Now, talking about the generic attachments, that's a key thing as well for multiple types of equipment. Generic attachments could be something as simple as, a wiring diagram for actuator. But it also, starting as of last month, we're starting to put up configurations for all the the MX units and the QX units from Limitorque that have the digital diagnostics and stuff in it. You can use the dashboard software to grab a configuration file. And we're doing that with any new or rebuilt actuators now, so that we can always go back and reference that. So just on the off chance that someone went into the menu and mistakenly made a change and it's causing your actuator to act funky, you can quickly use ValveKeep to access the configuration file, pull it down, compare it to what you have now, and quickly identify any variances. And save you a lot of time trying to troubleshoot when it was just something simple that got changed in the menu. We can put loops or any type of documentation we need attached to that. Now, when I say that as a generic attachment, that's just a file that we're uploading along with the valve that is not talking about the test sheets. And I said in the beginning, it's a relational database. It's not just something to do with that. But if you do have that need, an inspector comes in and he's looking for stuff and you need quick access to it, by all means, we can easily do that. And it's not just a copy. It's actually generating the certified test sheet that's been approved by the national board directly out of the software for you on the fly, along with all the signatures and everything else that apply to it. So easily on any valve that you wanted to print, you could click on, go down to the report menu, and click whatever type of report you needed to pull out. And that would also include image reports. So in addition to the test sheet, if you wanted to print those images out that went along, it would come out on an automatic report for you. So a lot of different data is being captured. A lot of different pre-built functionality has been in here. And I think you can see that we're going to scratch the surface of some of the things that we captured. But even with that, it's an amazing amount of data that can be very useful for you in a day-to-day operation that can only be gathered as you're doing the repairs and as you're doing the new builds and those kind of things. The history from the lifeline, you can see, the whole history of what's going on with your valve. If you go back in the valve tree, you also have another way to look at that by looking, expanding the tree out. On an individual valve here, I can see images and attachments that attach to the whole valve over the lifeline, but I can also see a list of each and every repair through the whole history of that valve. And if I would expand that, I can see exactly what parts have been changed, images and attachments that apply to that valve. So quick visibility of everything you need on a valve at your fingertips, literally 24/7. So some of the stuff you can see, if I've got multiple valves in an application and I see that I've done multiple repairs on one where I've only done a single repair on the other, either that valve is new and was added in late, and I could tell that by the dates, or I've got one valve that's going to be a bad actor and I need to give it some attention to find out why it is that this valve is failing and needing much more repair compared to other valves in a similar application. Lots of different things that you could do with that, with the data we're capturing. Now, in addition to that, we talked about managing turnarounds. We do have a valve calendar built in, and whatever interval you set up, you can use this calendar to kind of look at that and determine what's coming up and start planning your outage on what's coming due based on the intervals you set in the software. Now, this is a demo database, so I've got to click through and see if I can find any that apply. More than likely, it's going to be many years previous because the data here is pretty old. But you would see something on the calendar showing up exactly what you needed to do by day, month, year, whatever. In addition to that, we can also filter content based on a ID that's been set up for a order. So if we've got an order number that has been applied, we can filter all that out by that, and you can see in a repair list view all of the valves for a specific outage. Now, one of the columns that we've added in here as well, let me scroll over so you can actually see it, is a repair percent complete column. So if this was your outage and I had all the valves filtered out to see that grid of all the valves that are going on, I could literally look at this and sort this column by clicking on it. And I would be able to see all the status of the valves and which ones are complete versus not complete for the whole outage. Let me change this to kind of get a bigger view of more valves there. And you can see it sorts down. These are all 10% complete all the way up to the ones that are 100% complete. And I can see also out of those which ones have failed at pretest here in this column. So you can use it in multiple ways to kind of manage outage work. You print this grid report off, and now you've got something to take into your outage meeting to say, look, this is where status is for all of our equipment that's being handled by Chalmers and Kubek, for example. So a lot of ways you can use this to help manage everything you're doing day to day, from your basic maintenance intervals to your outage planning. And if you wanted to, you could even expand on this stuff to maintain spares and know which ones are active and which ones are not for your plant. Locations. So inside of here, I can actually set up a location for a valve. And on the right-hand side, I would indicate any valve that could operate as a functional spare for that valve. So if I wanted to see a specific location, say, what do I have in my spares that I could use? I could quickly use ValveKeep to find it. If it's something that we've stored as well, which we do for some customers, you can identify it and quickly notify us, say, I need this spare off the shelf. We can then build, set, and test it to make sure the set and test date's current and get it right out the door to you to put in so you can take it out for a bad actor. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over today. I wanted to open up for some more questions. If there's something else you guys had, I just wanted to kind of show you some of the highlights and then really get down to what you think it could do for you on a day-to-day basis to kind of show you more and dig into it a little deeper. So if there's any questions, I'll open it up to the floor.